All right.
Episode 91, Simple Action Steps to Reduce Stress During a Pandemic and Beyond. Welcome to Be Who You Want to Be, Your Business, Your Life, the podcast for micropreneurs designing your business and your life on your own terms. I'm your host, Candice Rodardi, and today I'm joined by the founder of the Stress Less Company, Carly Myers. Carly, a diplomat of the American Institute of Stress, is an expert at helping stressed out leaders create true emotional and financial freedom, all while working less. Carly believes there is no one size fits all when it comes to stress management. This is going to be a lot of fun and totally zen. It's going to be so relaxing. So welcome, Carly. Tell us your unique story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Well, my unique story is a bit of a can of worms, so I always like to give that warning, and even a little bit of a trigger warning here. But my journey actually started when I was 12 years old, believe it or not. And I will try to give you the Cliff Notes version because otherwise we'd be here for weeks probably. But basically, when I was 12 years a man was actually murdered in my home and my mom was shot 3 times. And yeah, so it was it was a pretty difficult beginning, if you will. And while my mom basically made a full recovery, if you saw her today, you'd have literally no idea. Um, I really struggled for a long time. I struggled with the symptoms of PTSD. I struggled with stress, overwhelm, jumpiness, night terrors. I mean, you name it, I was probably struggling with it. And, first of all, it took me a long time before I told anyone that I was struggling. But when I finally did, it was, I would say things to people like, hey, I'm feeling a little stressed, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, or I'm kind of struggling right now. And I would ask people for advice. And it was like clockwork. I got the same 5 or so responses every single time. Hey, Carly, have you tried therapy? Have you tried yoga? Have you tried meditation, changing your diet? Right. I was even asked, like, when's the last time you went to the gym? Like, that really works for me. And while there's absolutely nothing wrong with those 5 or so mainstream approaches, they were not working for me. Now, I have to be clear, some of them were working a little bit, right? But they weren't getting me to that place where I was experiencing that beautiful state of mind. And so as a result, I ended up struggling for a long time. And it took me about 10 years before I finally figured out what worked for me. And that thing was called creative stress reduction. And I'm sure we'll dig into that a little bit more throughout our time together. But I had discovered this, and finally my night terrors started to go away. I started to feel more calm. I started to feel more relaxed, and I was in that beautiful state of mind more times than not. And yet I experienced this intense anger. This perspective of like, why the hell isn't anybody talking about this? Right? Like, why isn't anybody talking about the fact that there's no one size fits all when it comes to stress management, mental health? I mean, the whole 9 yards. And so I threw my temper tantrum. Full disclosure, that temper tantrum happened. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. You know, I was supposed to be the one that was talking about this. And here we are.
I think you just identified the very first um, rule or lesson, or I don't know exactly how to categorize it, but it's the number one thing that leaders need to know. It's that the buck stops with them, and that they are the ones who have to start the conversation. They're the ones that have to make the hard choice. They're the ones that have to lead the way. That you can't, and it's not just leaders. You just can't expect somebody else to solve your problem for you, because it's your problem. You got to figure out a way to solve it yourself, which doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask for help. It just means
Yep.
you need to take control of your
Yeah.
well-being and whatnot. So when we're kids, we always think that our parents are superheroes. And so how old were you? Did you say you were 12?
Yep. 12.
12. I mean, at 12 years old, not only are you going through a time to change
Preteen
and
trauma.
and trauma of for that to happen. So kudos to you for working through it. I'm sure you still work through it, but kudos to you for working through it. And this is, I don't know why things always have to veer off topic right away, but it's not really off topic. So my mom was born in 1940 in war-torn. She was born in Beijing, China, but she was Korean national. And when her family returned to Korea after being forced to leave Beijing in 1942 or 43, the war had already started in Korea. It was war-torn. It was just horrible, right? Her mother ended up marrying an American soldier and left her in Korea to be raised by her. Okay, so again, culture back then. So her father had 2 wives, and she was raised by the mother of the first wife of her father, if that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, this is culture. Okay, this is cultural. She's walking in the street one day. She's like 7 years old. She's walking down the street. She sees this helmet laying in the street. So being a 7-year-old kid, she kicked it and a head fell out. Right? A human head fell out.
Yeah.
So we think of our parents as superheroes. A lot of times they don't tell us those stories. I mean, I was lucky that she actually revealed some of this stuff. I mean, really crappy stuff happens to you when you live in a country that's at war, right? Yeah. And then you just have to work through and grow beyond it. I don't think my mom ever really dealt with that stuff. I think she just repressed it, and it became evident the older she got that these horrible things had happened to her. And so being her daughter, I want to honor that happened to her. And I want to make sure that the world knows the story of what it's like for a child living in a country that's at war. Hello, Afghanistan. You know, and to honor, and not only Afghanistan, but I would say that Central American countries are at war too. And I really try not to be political, but I'm going to get political. Children should not be subject to that. Okay. So all that aside, those are two, your mother being shot in front of you and my mother kicking the helmet and a head falling out. Those are two really extreme traumatic things. But for the everyday kid who's alive right now, living in a pandemic, not knowing whether or not they have to go back to school or they can go back to school, wanting to go back to school, you know, being afraid, not knowing if they have to wear a mask or not, you know, all this stuff going on, the feeling of not feeling safe. What can we as parents do to help them?
Yeah. I think that's a big question. And it kind of goes back to my original comment as part of my own journey is that, you know, the unfortunate truth is that there is no one size fits all. There is no one blanket solution for every kid in the world, in America, even in, you know, I'm in the state of Pennsylvania, right? There isn't. But I do think that there's something to be said for being a role model. So being that parent who's done the work, who's demonstrated what it's like to process what I would consider, in this scenario, little t trauma, depending on the scenario, depending on the situation. The pandemic has kind of hit us with small thing after small thing after small thing, and then a big thing, and then more small things that create this kind of ongoing trauma. So as the parent, I would say to do the work, to figure out exactly what works for you, to reduce stress so that you can demonstrate for your children what it's like to be on the other side of that, what it's like to have a healthy relationship with emotions. Because I think one of the things that we don't see a lot of times is just plain old good role models, to know that a beautiful state of mind, whether it's contentment, joy, silliness, whatever, like to even know that that's possible. I think it would be a huge step for parents to take, to just be role models for their children.
But what if they don't know? I mean, what if a parent doesn't know how to do that?
Yeah.
Then
I
then
mean,
what? Then now what?
Yeah, I think that's where hiring or enlisting, whether it's hiring or asking for help or finding a mentor, or whatever. Like, I think that's where enlisting the help of someone else really comes in. And we could go into the conversation of like what helps good help and what helps not, right? I
Oh yeah,
remember,
let's do that.
okay,
Let's do that.
so I remember being a kid and going into the therapist's office and the therapist telling me, "Oh, you're fine." Was not fine, right? Unhelpful help. Um, and in the same breath, going to a different therapist, finding a great one that totally understood that I was overcompensating. I was pretending to be good to compensate for something. So here's what I would say about help. Good help doesn't tell you what the solution is. Good help doesn't say meditate and all your problems goes away. Good help doesn't say, oh, you're just not meditating enough, or your anxiety going up because you sat down to meditate. That tells me you need to meditate more. Like, that person, as good intentioned as they are, not helpful help. And I just use meditation as an example. This could go across any modality. Reiki, therapy, the personal trainer at the gym. I mean, anything goes. A good helper or a good mentor, guide, therapist will create the framework for you. They'll say, here's what you need to do to figure out what works for you. So for instance, the way that I work with my clients is each and every one of my clients works through this thing called the stress less method. And the very first step of the stress less method is manage your energy. And this, I'm not telling you how to manage your energy. I'm not telling you what you need to do. But what I am saying is that when we are in fight, flight, or freeze mode, especially in business, especially in our personal life, across the board, really, when we are stressed, the first thing that goes out the window is our critical thinking, our ability to effectively solve problems. So in order to get that back, we have to get into rest and digest mode. We have to be in a grounded state, or else we're going to be self-sabotaging, making stupid decisions, and we're going to be in a place where the pandemic completely takes down our business, especially when we're talking about the difference between those who thrived and those who really struggled in business in the pandemic. I hate to say it. Now, there are other circumstances there, but step one, talking about managing your energy. I'm not saying, hey, go meditate. Hey, go do Reiki. Hey, go to the gym. Hey, do this. I'm saying, hey, if petting your dog gets you into rest and digest mode, do it. More power to you. If formatting Excel spreadsheets are your thing, oh my God, will you do mine for me? Like, whatever works for you. Going into step two of the stress less method, it's identifying your blocks. What are the unnecessary stressors? What are the stressors coming up in your day-to-day life? What's causing you to be pissed off or angry or stressed or overwhelmed or despondent or sad or whatever negative state of mind? And that, again, is a framework. I allow my clients to go through and really dig into that, get to the root that is very unique to them. What's causing the self-sabotage? What's causing the stress? What's causing this? And then we go into, okay, what's unique to me? What do I need to do uniquely as an individual to address this? So I guess that's a long way of saying that I think a good mentor creates the framework for you. So you're not just like, what the hell do I do and where do I start? But also creates enough freedom for you to decide exactly what works for you.
And it's important to give yourself the grace that if the first person that you ask for help isn't the right person to help you, then it's okay to ask someone else and not just throw the whole process of asking for help out the window. People who know how to get shit done do it because they know how to ask the right people to help them get the shit done, right?
Yeah. Well, it's not even asking the right people. It's asking and asking and asking and asking and asking until you hit the right person. And I think another thing to just note here is that you're going to feel like, first and foremost, you're going to get a gut feeling or like an energetic response when you're talking to someone. When you make that ask for help, their response is going to give you an energetic response. Like, your gut's going to be like, ugh, or your gut's going to be like, oh, interesting. Let me lean in. And that's like that would be your first indicator to say, does this person resonate or does this not? Like, are they a good fit or no? You can use that as your first indicator. And then go into, is this person telling me what to do? Are they kind of being the dictator of my life? Or are they giving me this space to be a colleague, a collaborator, and help me get to where I'm going to go?
I
Be the
love
leader of my own life.
I
Yeah.
love that you are calling them a collaborator and a colleague rather than a therapist or a coach or a mentor, because true. I mean, I call myself a business coach, but that's not what I do. That's not what I do. I roll up my sleeves and I help people. I don't think that's coaching. I think that's working alongside somebody. But the term that people have for that is coach. Um, but I don't like authority. I've never liked authority. I totally reject authority. I don't like people telling me what to do. So I think that's a reflection of the right guide for me is somebody. Yeah. So I love that you have said, because something that a lot of my clients want is a follow-up system, right? They want a follow-up system. They want to know exactly how to keep track of the people they need to follow up with, and they want to know what the steps that they need to take, and yada yada yada. I can't create that system for you because I don't know what's going to work for you. The follow-up system that you use has to be the follow-up system that you use, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So,
just in that example, that's the opportunity, like the collaboration opportunity there is to say like, well, hey, who are your people, and like, what are their tendencies, and how do they operate? Like, do they tend to ghost? Are they the hider? Are they the one that's going to be up your ass? Pardon my French. Like, if they're up your ass, you're not going to need a follow-up system. But if they tend to hide or ghost, right? Knowing how to, like, what responses would they most engage with? But yeah, it's like, again, it's no one size fits all. It's like, what's going to work for you? Who are your people?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and really, if they're ghosting you, do you really need to keep following up with them?
Yeah. Do you want them in your
Yeah.
practice?
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Okay. So, I do my research on guests before I have them on the show. And something that you teach is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which I find really interesting. And it's really relevant right now in today's
Yeah.
COVID. I don't want to call it a pandemic because this is just pandemonium, right? It's pandemonium. So talk to me about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how it relates to self-care. And I also want you to tie in your event that you've got in Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. Yep.
Philadelphia, that you've got coming in Philadelphia, because it's called the
Selfish Philly. Yep.
So tie those in, because I don't really think that taking care of yourself is selfish. I think it's self-care, but I hate the word self-care, but anyway, there you go. There's a whole bunch there. Unpack all that.
Okay, here we go. One bit by one bit. One piece of clothing at a time. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs, of first and foremost, I have to acknowledge that obviously it's not something that I've created. It's a theory that was brought forward by Abraham Maslow a long ass time ago. However, there's so much about it that is still relevant, and a lot of therapists, psychologists, professionals across the board are using it as a guideline. Specifically a guideline around self-care, and going beyond that into basically self-actualization, which is like being the best version of yourself, like living your life to the fullest, which sounds kind of cliche and tacky, but it's true. So basically Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a pyramid. And at the bottom of that pyramid, the widest sector, the most important pretty much, is your physiological needs. And every single layer, I guess I should say, of this pyramid is a need that you have that must be met for you to really feel fulfilled and take your life to the next level.
Okay, so just for clarification, the foundation of the pyramid is eating, sleeping, pooping.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It's air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, and we could even replace reproduction with just sex. right? Just physical intimacy even. So, I mean, that's the bottom. And a lot of folks, as much as we want to make our way up higher in the pyramid, like we're right here. We're like, how am I going to get groceries this week? Physiological need. The next level above that is our safety needs. So that's, our sense of personal security, that's employment, that's money, resources, that's health, that's property. So as much as we'd all love to be beyond these things, the pandemic for most of us, we're here. We're like, am I going to get sick? Am I not? Is my loved one going to get sick? Not. I live in Philadelphia, and last July or June or July, oh my goodness, was I concerned for my personal safety. An ATM was being blown up a block from my house, right? 100%. The next level above that is love and belonging. So that's friendship, intimacy, family, a sense of connection. Above that is esteem. So a sense of respect, a sense of self-esteem, status, maybe even recognition, freedom. And at the very top of that pyramid is self-actualization, which is basically, again, the desire to be the best that you can be. So we really have to start at the bottom of that pyramid and make sure that we meet those needs and then work our way up. Because the theory is that we cannot get to self-actualization if we're trying to get food on the table, if we're struggling to get food on the table.
Does it ever work the other way? I mean, I'm thinking about Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Right. He was the greatest boxer of all time because he believed he was the greatest boxer of all time, and he made us believe it too. Yep. Right. Everybody believed it. So do you think that was him working backwards, or do you think that he just already felt confident in the rest of the needs?
I think that as much as this pyramid kind of implies that, and even I just said it, you kind of build upon it. I think there is like a basic level of physiological needs and safety needs that needs to be met. But I also don't think it's so black and white. I think that there's part of us that just has and experiences these all at the same time. Love and belonging is a huge piece in our safety needs. Like it can play into, especially in the United States where we're living at a certain quality of life, am I going to be able to afford rent without my partner? Right. They're so intertwined that we have a lot to think about. And I don't think it's so black and white.
Yeah, I agree. So what's your thoughts on affirmations and afformations? So the difference between an affirmation and an afformation. An afformation was something that was created by Noah St. John. For those of you who are listening, afformations are one of my favorite things in the world that I don't think I've ever talked to anybody on the podcast about before. So this is the first.
Ooh,
so
okay.
Afformations. So an affirmation is that I am the greatest boxer in the world. That's an affirmation. An afformation is changing that to a question. So why am I the greatest boxer in the world? And then your brain starts to form the answer.
Yep.
So even though I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any experience in psycho anything, right? Except for maybe being a little psychotic myself. No.
Love it.
I just have this feeling that people like Muhammad Ali were always answering that question. They weren't just saying I am the greatest boxer in the world. They were answering why they are, right? Why do I have so if your affirmation is I am providing for my family's every need, that's your affirmation. But to change that up to an affirmation, why am I providing for my family's every need? Then your brain starts to go, okay, well, I'm providing for my family's every need because I hustle hard. I hustle hard to do the thing that I do well and I make money at it. And the reason why I make money at it is because I blah, 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 you checklist. So your brain starts to tick away. This is just a really fascinating, because I've never really, I've heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but I've never really had a conversation about it. And it just seems to me that there's a scale. There's like if you're watching the video, you can see that I'm making a scale thing. There's a scale. right? There's a scale. If you want to see the video, it's momgeek.com/91. So there's a scale and you weigh it. But yeah, this is just really fascinating. Really, really
Yeah,
fascinating.
I think that's really interesting. And so I have a tool that I teach my clients called fact checking, which is similar and yet different. Um,
Oh, hey, fact checking.
yeah,
Now there's a concept.
yeah. So it's, I mean, and you could apply fact checking to, how am I meeting all my family's needs, or how am I the greatest, or why, or how am I the greatest boxer of all time? Um, and yet I think sometimes, at least with the folks that I work with, sometimes that question is just like our ego mind is like, well, fuck that. Like, I don't have any evidence. Like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this. Versus, going back to the block inventory that I shared, sometimes we'll find that there's a limiting belief there. For instance, um, I need to change in order to be loved and accepted. And therefore, I need to change in order to make money. Right. We could go down that rabbit hole. That's the belief. That's the subconscious belief that we're operating on in our business and our lives, whatever. Rather than saying, the affirmation would be like, I don't need to change to be loved. And yet the ego mind would probably be like, yeah, okay, bitch, but like, um, you do, right? The ego mind would tell you all the reasons why you have to.
So the affirmation is actually, I am worthy of love.
Mm,
That's the affirmation. That I
yeah.
don't need to change to be loved. It's still,
It's still negative,
yeah, it's still negative, but I am worthy of love.
as
That's
I
the
am,
affirmation. Yeah.
as I
Just
am.
the way I am.
Yeah. Well, so even so, the ego mind's going to be like, yeah, because look, I've had to change in this situation. I've had to change in that situation. I've had to do this. Even if you didn't, like the ego mind, you did change and it maybe reaped a positive result. And so what we do there with fact checking is we say, why is this not true? Why is it not true that you have to change in order to be loved? Like, give me all the examples of how this really like did not work out for you. And what that does is it over time creates the next baby step belief. And then the next baby step belief. Like, well, okay, I don't have to change all the time is a really good, next step. I don't have to change all the time, just sometimes. And then you continue the fact checking work and then you're like, wait, no, I don't think no, I really don't think I had to change. Like 90% of the time I don't have to change. And right. So like it creates this, rather than triggering the ego mind into like, well, screw this, it's not true. It's like these little stepping stones that get us to the other side, to the belief where we're like really, not only do we know it, but we embody it because we have like, 3 months, depending on the belief and how ingrained it is, like, a week, 3 months, 3 years worth of evidence that we've gathered to say, no, this really isn't true. And we start to believe it.
Yeah. I love that. Fact checking.
Yeah.
Let's talk about fact checking in the coronavirus. The pandemic.
Oh my, can of worms.
I know it's a can of worms, but there's a lot of stress right now because people don't have the right information. So, I mean, talk to me about how we can feel less stress about the pandemic.
I think again, no one size fits all, but I will say that a lot of the reason the pandemic has caused so much strife, like just intellectually strife, not like physical. We'll skip over the physical here for a second. Is that we each have I think we each have two guidance systems. I'm going to get woo here for you for a second, but we have each of us has a physical guidance system, and we have a more like abstract, unseen kind of emotional is not the right word, maybe spiritual guidance system. So we have the physical, which I would say is like the ego mind. So the ego is the thing that's telling us like, don't walk into that tree, that will hurt. Like, you are separate from that tree. Don't walk out in traffic. The ego mind's keeping you physically safe. And then we have whatever we want to call this, our higher self, our gut, our intuition.
Our
And
ethereal
that,
self.
yeah,
Ethereal.
yeah. And that I think is the guidance system that should be our primary guidance system. And that's keeping us, I would say, like, our spirit, whatever that means to you, again, safe. Um, the the ethereal self, that guidance system, that is really like what I would compare like the GPS on your phone. Like, it's telling you to turn left, it's telling you to turn right, merge in 300 feet. Like, it's always there. And a lot of us
Recalculating.
recalculating, right? You've not listened to me, recalculating, right? And I think that's the guidance system where we hear it so often, or at least when we were younger, we heard it so often that we tend to we've gotten to a place where either we just zone it out, we maybe turn the music up in the car to ignore it because we're like, fuck you, Siri, I don't want to hear you. We mute it because we're trying to have a conversation. Like, goodness, why are you trying to guide me when I'm talking to my passenger here, right? And so we've learned over time to ignore it, and yet it's that guidance system that's constantly telling us what to do. And then we have the ego mind, which is that, again, that physical guidance system. And I think the way that what I would consider that is maybe like the alarm going off in the building, or the car that's next to you beeping, like, don't you run into me, do not turn left, right? It's like that emergency, like, oh my God. And I guess to circle this back, because we've ignored that more abstract or ethereal guidance system, that ongoing guidance system for so long, many of us are operating on that, like, we're relying on that emergency guidance system. So everything is like ride or die. It's like, if someone doesn't wear a mask, oh my God. If someone wears a mask, oh my God. Like, it's the ego mind just like being the drama queen that it is, because it's supposed to be dramatic to keep us safe. And I think that that's a lot of what's happened on the intellectual level with the pandemic, is the ego mind as the guidance system has taken over, versus this ongoing guidance system of like, what's right for me now, what's good for this person now. And I think what would make us feel a lot more ease as a society, and I know this is broad brushstroking here, is for us to acknowledge that that person that's on the opposite side of the fence as us, whatever we believe, they are just scared. Their ego mind is freaking the fuck out. They're terrified. And that's why they're responding the way that we're responding. And to give them grace, well, first of all, to say, like, am I operating from ego? Am I operating from fear, from the emergency guidance system? But also, like, giving myself grace if I am, and giving the other person grace to say, like, yeah, I totally feel you. It's scary across the board. It's scary, like on either side. It's scary to feel like I'm losing all my rights to live my life. It's also scary that I might contract a virus that's killed how many people, right? Both sides are freaking scary. But we have to have the grace and the emotional groundedness to acknowledge both of them.
I love that. I love the and it's hard because the people who don't feel the same way I do, I don't want to give them grace. I just want to think that they're idiots. But that,
Totally.
But you're right. But I've always been the kind of person that has friends from all, I tend to like everybody. I don't care what you believe. I just, if I think you have a great personality, I want to hang out with you. But not everybody's that way. Although lately, in the last 18 months, I have been not as.
Well, again, it goes back to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The ego's mind's being like love and belonging. I need love and belonging. I need to feel as if I belong. And that's how we get, fortunately and unfortunately, like, we get the love and belonging, but we also can end up in an echo chamber.
Well, I also think that people tend to believe that everyone has the same belief system that they have.
Yeah. Well,
right?
especially if you're in an echo chamber, if you're surrounding yourself with the people that have the same beliefs as you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, we need to wrap up. So tell me about your Selfless Philly event.
Selfish Philly, first and
Selfish, sorry, Selfish Philly.
Yeah. Okay. So Selfish Philly is a conference for the ladies who are listening to this podcast. It's really about, it's basically the self-care conference. It's happening on October 1st, 2021 in Philadelphia. Um, as of right now, it will be a masked event, just a heads up there. But basically, just to give you a gist as to why this came about, basically, we've kind of identified that women are called three things, and these three things are like the baseball bats to the knees. So we're called fat as a way of manipulation, we're called crazy, or we're called selfish. Now, my co-founder and I have already said there's a lot of great work being done around the word fat, body positivity, the whole nine yards. Nike did this incredible campaign 2 years ago around the word crazy, right? If they're going to call you crazy, show them what crazy looks like. And it had Serena Williams and all these incredible female athletes just kicking ass. No one's talking about the word selfish. And yet it is one of the most commonly used words to, I would say, keep women in their place, or to manipulate them into stepping into a mission that maybe isn't their own. And I'm going to pause myself just for a second.
Actually, I'm really glad we're going to take just a small break because I have to go kill a cat. So stand by, hold on.
All right, we still have a few little coughs here.
Okay, we'll just pick up where we are. I wish I could come to your event, but I'm not doing big events right now. I compromised immune system. So
Totally.
yeah, but next year maybe.
Yeah.
Because I
totally.
mean, Philadelphia is a drive. I could make Philadelphia in a day.
Yeah, where are you at?
West Michigan.
West Michigan, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a long drive, but it's not
Yeah.
outrageous.
Well, I have a good friend that lives in right outside Philadelphia. I can never remember the name of the town she lives in because it's one of those really long. Pennsylvania has these long ass names. Something township. Like there's 4 words in the name of her city.
Oh, Haddonfield Township or something?
No, East Fallowfield Township. That's where she lives.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, I think we've got a few seconds, so we
Okay.
might want to take it.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Pause. Go.
All right. Selfish Philly is basically the self-care conference for women, especially in the Philadelphia area. And it's all about reclaiming the word selfish, right? Basically saying if someone calls you selfish, your response is, damn right, I'm selfish. Because if I didn't fill my cup first, not only would I be worse for it, but the world would be. And so it's all about making sure that we take care of ourselves so that we can be of greater service, not only to ourselves, but to the world at large. So again, it's October 1st, 2021. It's going to be good.
And this is your second annual.
Second annual. You got
which
it.
means that next October, there'll be a third.
Fingers crossed.
So if you're listening to this episode, it's momgeek.com/91. You can get a link to the Selfish Philly event in October of 2021. However, if you're listening to it after October of 2021, check out that link anyway, because there may be one in 2022 and beyond. So I wish I could be there, but it's not going to happen this year. So hopefully you do it next year, because I'd love to be there. All right. We've talked about so much. This has been really fun. We've gone way over time. Which is okay. I'll edit it out. But so what is your next big fat hairy goal?
Well, I would say aside from the conference, which is coming up soon, My big fat hairy goal is to offer my first in-person retreat in New Hampshire for restless, overworked leaders. I'm really, really excited about it. Don't have any details for you guys, but it is something that'll be coming up in the next year, year and a half, which I'm really, really excited about.
Thanks for joining us this week on Be Who You Want to Be, Your Business, Your Life, episode 91. Check the show notes at momgeek.com/91 for links to the resources mentioned today. And of course, to connect with Carly Myers. Be sure to follow us on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Hey, listen up. You and I both know that you are dazzling, you are spectacular, and you possess magical gifts like no one else in the world. Micro Influencer Magic was created just for you. Book your discovery call with me to learn how Micro Influencer Magic will help you cast your spell. Look for the link in the show notes, momgeek.com/91. Our theme music is Never Give Up, written and performed by Soul Lily. I've been your host, Candice Rodarty, and yes, you can be who you want to be. Take it away, Soul Lily.